Welcome, sweet friends, to the channel Frugal Money Saver. My name is Emmy, my husband is Paul, and we are so happy you have joined us today. Today's video, I'm going to tell you in advance, I am filming. From beginning to end, it's me. Paul is not here, and we'll get to that in a minute, where he is and what's going on. But I did want to forewarn you, if the camera's crooked or audio's a little off, I'm doing my best, so be kind. So what are we doing today? We are going to be talking about a bunch of topics. First thing we're going to do is have some fun. And I'm going to take you to my brother's house for a few minutes and just show you our St. Patrick's celebration and how my key lime pie turned out. And I will link that video down below on how I made that key lime pie if you missed it. Then we're going to talk about being prepared. Financially prepared if something comes up and we need to spend some money. And also prepared in the form of hospitality, in helping others, in being ready if someone should call on us and needs us for something. So let's just jump right into this video. The first thing we're going to do is head to my brother's house, and we're going to start this video with just a feast for the eyes. My sister-in-law is from Italy, and she created the best St. Patrick's Day feast you can imagine. Now, all of these are not particularly Irish foods, as you'll see, but most of them are. So let's turn this camera around and get to my brother's house for a few minutes. Our first course was several different Irish cheeses, crackers, and some dried meats. It was amazing. And then for the main course, it was corned beef, cabbage with whole potatoes and carrots. And then my sister-in-law made one of my favorite dishes, spiced caracara oranges with cinnamon and raisins. Oh my goodness, you have never tasted something so delicious. She also made from scratch this gorgeous Irish soda bread. And yes, it tasted as delicious as it looks. So you saw the delicious feast my sister-in-law cooked, and the food was amazing. Now we're moving on to dessert. Here is my finished key lime pie, and these are little chocolate raspberry bites I made as well. Now we're going to cut the key lime and we're going to see what everyone thinks about it. We are here, and Brother Sam jumped on and he said, I will taste your key lime pie. So you guys haven't seen him since the summer. All right, tell us what you think, Sam.
That is the finest key lime pie I have ever had.
Get out, you're just saying that.
When I was in the service, I'd go down to Florida. That's all they serve. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Key lime pie. You can buy little lime trees all over the place down there. This is really good. You did a great job on it. But I want to try the black raspberry thing. What do you call this?
Yep, it's just a chocolate raspberry
Hold
bite.
on 1 second. Let's see. I hope it's as good as that key lime. Oh, you know what? That's like a raspberry brownie.
Isn't it good?
It's great. You do great work. Very good. Thank you. Goodbye. Darn good key lime.
My beautiful family. And then our take-home gift was fresh lemons from my brother and sister-in-law's lemon tree that they winter in their basement. Amazing lemons. Oh my goodness. I cannot tell you how much fun we had, how great the food was, the company, just the whole day was just such a blessing. And we wanted to share just a little snippet with you. Now let's get into the bulk of this video. What we want to talk about is how Paul and I save, how we prepare for the unexpected. Let me explain what happened. We got an electric bill from our little house in South Carolina. And we usually pay about $30 a month in electricity, especially if we're not there. This bill was $125 when it came in, and we were like, yikes, something's wrong. Something's very wrong. We have a well in South Carolina. We don't have city water. And it seems that our well turned on and never turned off. We're not sure why, but that pump turned and turned and turned until it blew itself out. We call our property manager, the man who mows our lawn and does all that wonderful stuff for us. He came over and he said he kept putting the breaker on for the well pump and it would turn right off. So we knew. We had people down at the house give us estimates. We came to the conclusion that it would actually be better in the long run and financially for us to get hooked up finally to town water, to city water. But guess what? That costs money too. What did we have to do? We called the town and it was $1,600 just to put the meter on our property, the water meter for our property. Okay, that's fine. Then you have to hire a plumber to come in and dig the line from the road to your house. That's another $1,600 or so. The two combined was a nice chunk of change, but we figured this would be so much more economical going forward. If we ever wanted to sell the home, you're hooked up to city water. Our well water always kind of smelled like sulfur. We never drank it. Water had a high salt content in it. So we thought this was the best way to go. And we're in the process of getting that done now, long distance. But it's okay. We're going to get there. So how were we able to pay for this? And I'm going to tell you this, and I'm going to reiterate this. And I tell you all the time, Paul and I are savers. And we save money. If we get unexpected money, let's say someone blesses us with a birthday gift or an anniversary gift or something like that, Christmas, we take that money and we put it away. We don't automatically spend it. If we get a tax return, we take that money and we put it away. We don't just spend it. I cannot tell you how we encourage you to do the same. If you do not have an emergency fund, I would beg you to please start today putting money aside. And I will tell you how we do that on a week-to-week, month-to-month basis. And hopefully it will encourage you to do the same. Now, this emergency fund is for the what ifs or the God forbids or, oh my goodness, we weren't expecting that kind of events that require us to pay. How Paul and I save is exactly this. Before we make any non-essential purchase, now that is the key word, non-essential, we ask ourselves how many hours would we have to work for this purchase, number one, or how many hours of our retirement would it take to pay this item off? So let's say hypothetically we make $20 an hour and we go out for a $60 dinner. Well, that was 3 hours of work right there. We just put in our bellies. Yes, it was fun. Yes, it was delicious, but it was also $60. Then the second thing we ask ourselves, after we ask ourselves how long would we have to work for that or how many hours of our retirement pay would it take to pay that? Then we ask ourselves the second big question, does this have any long-term value before we purchase it? Now jot these down if you can, because these are 3 really great reference points that I think you're going to want to go back to. Does this have any value long-term? Does that $60 dinner we just ate have long-term value? No, it doesn't. It really doesn't. But does that $60 that we had extra to go out to dinner, now we put that away for the future, does that have long-term value? Yes, it does. It will grow if you put it in a bank account with interest, number one, because the bank's interest now are actually, some of them are 3 and 4%. And that is a nice little bit of change. Every time you add to that, you will see this emergency fund grow. So the first one is, how many hours do we have to work? The second one is, does this non-essential purchase have long-term value to us? Then the third thing we ask ourselves, is it easier to work for that $60 or just not spend that $60? What is easier? Is it easier for you to work an extra 3 hours to get that $60 to pay for the dinner? Or would it be easier for you not to have the dinner and not have to work those extra 3 hours? For us, it always comes down to it's easier for us not to work and not to have to pay for that. But that is our choice. Everybody's frugal journey is different. You may say to me, that $60 to go out to dinner is totally worth it for us. And I understand that and I respect that. You know we do. But then I am going to ask you, on the other hand, could that $60, if you do not have an emergency fund or your emergency fund is low, not be better put away for a God forbid or a what if? Now, this is just some food for thought. Again, everyone's frugal journey is different. Another way we save money is a spending freeze. You know, in January, we have a no spend January. The only thing we spend on is essential purchases. And then the rest of the month in January, we have no spend, meaning we don't buy any non-essential purchases. Can you do 1 week out of the month where you don't spend anything on non-essential purchases? Can you do maybe 2 weeks a month where you don't spend anything on non-essential purchases? And that cup of coffee, that $6 every day that you usually spend on coffee, put it in that emergency fund. That every Friday night that you go out for pizza and drinks, take it and put it in the emergency fund. It will add up quickly. Now, again, I'm not talking about a life of deprivation. That's not what we're saying. But we're saying to build up an emergency fund. There are ways, and it is doable if you are just conscious of where your money is going. Just some essential ways that Paul and I really save money, because we're on a fixed income and we do have our YouTube income coming in. And that would be really easy to say, okay, well, let's do this with the YouTube income or what. No. You got to save for things like a broken water pump, or putting in a new water line, or whatever it may be. It is so crucial that you have and maintain an emergency fund. And I hope these practical tips were super helpful. Now, the second way that we need to be prepared is in the form of hospitality in helping others. Now, let me explain this scenario. We have had a busy week. Let's just say that, okay? As most of you know, we're to bed early. Those of you who have watched us, you know we're early to bed, early to rise. We're literally in bed by 9, and we're up between 5 and 6 every morning. We get a call at about 11:15 the other night, fast asleep. And it's Paul's mom calling that his dad had to go into the hospital. Paul got up and right away got over there, and she was fine, and dad got taken to the hospital and he's doing okay. My first thought was, well, what can I do? Paul ended up spending the night, and I knew he would have to spend the next day till we found out what was going on with dad. So right away, Emmy's mode is, well, what can I do to help? And one thing I knew I could do is cook for them and prepare food. I have a stocked freezer. I have a stocked pantry and cabinets. I knew I did not have to run to a store to buy them anything. I knew I could create something yummy and satisfying for them. First thing I did was look in my freezer, and this is 11 o'clock at night. I did have prepared meals in the freezer that I could have just taken out and put in their stove, but they were pasta based with tomato sauce. And I just wasn't feeling that for my mother-in-law and Paul right now. I wanted something real warm, hearty, and cozy. So I am going to show you what I did and how in turn being prepared with having food in the home was such a blessing. So let's turn this camera around and get into the kitchen for a minute. When we got the phone call this evening, I knew the first thing I would have to do is make a meal. I knew my mother-in-law would have to eat, and because it's a Sunday, Meals on Wheels would not be coming to bring them food, and with Dad in the hospital and Paul slept there. What I'm doing is grabbing a piece of London broil, and I'm going to put it in the refrigerator to defrost, and I will put it in the crock pot tomorrow morning. Please stock your freezer, please. I cut up the meat into little pieces, and I cut up an onion. I had some homemade chicken stock in the freezer, and I added that as well. And it's been cooking for about an hour now. And what I'll do is cut up some carrots and potatoes and I want to have a nice stew for them to eat later. Just trying to make sure they have a nice hot meal for this afternoon. Last week, ShopRite had baby carrots, 2 pounds for 99 cents, so I picked them up. They also had 2 5-pound bags of potatoes for $4. So 10 pounds of potatoes for $4 was a great deal. I pulled out some of the small potatoes and I'm going to add that to the stew as well. Liquid is hot, so I'm going to be very careful dropping all that in. I figured the meat needed to cook a little longer than the little potatoes and the carrots. I have extra broth in here. I'll probably make dumplings with this as well. So now I'm going to just continue to cook it on high for a couple of more hours. What I'm going to do now is just make some easy dumplings that will make the stew hearty, comforting. I think it will be perfect. All I'm going to need is a cup of flour, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, and about a half a teaspoon of salt. I used a 1/4 teaspoon though. Half a cup of milk and a tablespoon of butter. First thing we're going to do is mix up our dry ingredients. And I'm just going to give those a whisk. Then it says to cut in the tablespoon of butter. What I do is I just grate mine in because it's nice and cold. Just watch your fingers and don't let it get too small. And once it gets too small, just drop it right in. And now I'm just going to cut the butter in with the dry ingredients. And now I'm going to add our half a cup of milk. And I'm just going to give this a good stir. The reason I use London broil in our stew is because it is a cheaper cut of meat. We can get it on sale for about $1.99 a pound, which is an awesome price for beef when it goes on sale. And we buy it and we cut the big pieces in half, and they cook slow and low in the crock pot. Makes a very, very tender stew meat. So it's not only economical, it's very delicious too. So you don't want to overmix this because that will make our dumplings tough. Just going to let this rest for about 5 minutes. We let the dough for the dumplings rest just about 5 minutes. Now I'm going to take them and just drop them into the boiling liquid in the crock pot. I'm not fancy when I drop them. I just kind of take a little piece, break it off, and drop it in. I think I made an awful lot, but that's okay because dumplings are so yummy. Be careful when you're dropping them in. The liquid is hot and you don't want it to splash. I'm going to put the cover back on the crock pot. And I'm going to set the timer for 15 minutes and let them cook. The dumplings cooked just about 20 minutes. Oh, yes. They look wonderful. These are perfect. Did you see how easy it was to make them? Simple ingredients. This will make the stew even more delicious. So now I have a wonderful meal to share. It helps so much when we are prepared with a stocked pantry, a stocked freezer. So easy to put together a simple meal. The stew was amazing. It was hearty. It had meat. It had vegetables. It had some carbohydrates in the form of those dumplings. And it was delicious. It was the comfort food they needed. I will continue to cook and I have some bread going. Just simple ways that I can bless them. And by having, again, that stocked pantry and freezer, I wasn't running out, getting some really heavily salted frozen meal that my mother-in-law can't eat. I was able to create an effortless meal in the crock pot. Again, I don't care what anybody says. I am telling you that crock pot is got to be one of the best small appliances you can own. Honest to goodness. The stew, by the way, cooked for a total of like 6 hours on high. The dumplings going in the last 20 minutes. The meat was fork tender. The veggies were delicious. It was just a win-win. Just a great way to bless them. So be prepared on every level. Even if you, God forbid, were to get sick, do you have food in your home that you can prepare quickly, that you can eat out of your refrigerator, freezer, or pantry for several days, if not weeks? because it really is important to stock up and keep these things in the home. Today's question of the day: how do you prepare? Whether it be financially or whether it be on the level of hospitality, what do you do to keep yourself ready if something should come up? Please share that with us. It will not only encourage us, but it will encourage our viewers as well. And you'll be giving us new tips to think about how we can save or how we can be ready if unexpected guests drop by or if someone is going through something and we can bless someone else. Please share that with us. It will be so helpful. We hope this video was encouraging and it just got you thinking a little bit. Go back to those essential tips I shared, jot them down, revisit them. Start that emergency fund. Start getting that money put away. It is so important. We ask you to stay well. We ask you to be safe. And above all, we wish you blessings. Until our next video, may God greatly bless you. Please give this a big thumbs up if you would be so kind. Subscribe if you haven't. And don't forget that comment.